Hey, folks, Roger Farina here with Citizen Media News, hosting Ian Trottier with Discussion of the Truth, Noel Roberts from Total News, and Burt Thakur. We're handing over the interview to Ian. Here you go, Ian. Take it over. Hi, Noel.
Noel, need you to stick around because I need to talk to Noel. You want Noel part of this, Roger?
Sure.
Okay, well.
Burt, you give it, I'll get the flyer.
Oh, okay, she get the flyer. Burt, we didn't have a chance to do this yesterday.
My hands are dry.
You're dry now, so we shake hands.
Because, we like to be hygienic here. Sound mind, sound body.
Sound mind, sound body, dude. Wait, so Burt, what's happening in Texas right now? What's going on in Texas, and what are you doing? You're a congressional candidate. Break it down for viewers and listeners.
What district?
Hi, everyone. My name is Burt Thakur. I'm running for Congressional District 26, which is just outside of Dallas, Texas. Dr. Michael Burgess decided not to run. It's an open primary. It's an R+13 seat. And I'm the only veteran, let alone combat veteran, in the race. I work in construction. I'm really tired of weirdos getting into government. What do I mean by that? People who have tons of money, people who are born into political families that have completely lost the tact, because we need to learn not only how to walk with kings, but also have the common touch. What I'm learning is, look, whether you go from a town that's 1,500 people or to a large city, all of us are suffering under the same weight. Healthcare, $600, $800 a month per person. A family of 4, a family of 5 pays more in healthcare than they do for rent. With interest rates, 8%, 9%, businesses can't even get loans, let alone anybody getting a home now. Goodbye. We don't have any good paying jobs. Forget losing jobs to people overseas. We're losing jobs to artificial intelligence at this point. Microsoft laid off 10,000 people in a month. Okay? Wow. And made way for ChatGPT. $10,000, $100,000 jobs. So here's what I'm proposing. How about we raise minimum skill? We get trade schools at the end of high school. For college, zero interest principal only loans when it comes to STEM degrees. And we start bringing back American manufacturing. Not just college, but critical infrastructure manufacturing. Think about it. One thing COVID taught all of us this. It shouldn't matter if there's a cold somewhere in the Far East or a ship stuck sideways in the Suez Canal. How should that affect us in any way, shape, or form for getting metformin? Why is it that our medium voltage transformers or high voltage transformers, part of our critical infrastructure, have 36 to 48 month lead times? Okay? We saw what happened with Snowmageddon in Texas and other places. We're seeing what's happening in North Carolina. Why is it that we're in a place where even transistors down to baby
Rogers from North Carolina.
That happened 15 minutes from my house.
You got to be kidding. So I work in power generation. I work in critical power infrastructure now. I'm a commissioning manager for hyperscales. In the Navy, I was a nuclear reactor operator. Okay.
They blame that girl Emily Grace, who was that girl that was in the Army. It's incredible.
Here's the deal: we can't have 48 months for somebody to fix our problem. These things can't be made in Germany, assembled in Mexico, made in India, made in China, we got to start making it here. When you talk about a power grid and you're talking about a situation where you're moving towards solar and wind, and you have a $400 billion slush fund in the White House, effectively, for this climate change. Listen, I call it the Green New Scam. Okay?
Nice.
Because that's what it is. All right? The reality is, who's getting wealthy off it? China?
United Nations scam.
United Nations Agenda 2030 is real. I'm the only one talking about this, too. I'm a legal immigrant, man. I came here in 1990.
From where?
From India. I grew up in the foothills of the Himalayas. Absolutely. And, I remember seeing my great-grandmother rebuild her mud huts after the monsoons would come.
Huh.
So to go from that to running for the Congress of the United States of America, that should tell you how great our country is. I mean, come on.
Yeah.
I served in the Navy. Oh, go ahead.
So you're from India. How do you play cricket?
If I knew, I'd tell you.
If I knew, yeah.
If I knew. Look, cricket's a beautiful game, man. But what I want to play? I want us to start playing like we're Americans. I want us to start playing the real game, which is we can't be giving over all of our assets to the CCP. We can't be. Look, we can't have a situation where the number 2 most applied for patents in the United States is coming from a company that has 0 brick and mortar inside of the United States. Huawei is
never even
2.
heard of it.
That's right.
Burt.
Huawei is a Chinese telecom company.
That was that girl that I interviewed yesterday, Mary Todd.
Yeah.
Her son worked for Huawei in Singapore, and he was murdered.
That's right.
Oh, wow. Okay.
So Huawei is the Chinese is the CCP's equivalent of the largest telecom company. Okay,
Got it.
it's state owned, and the number 2 most filed patents in our country comes from Huawei, right behind IBM. And guess where they're all doing it? In the telecom space and in the 5G space. Okay. The other thing with the CCP, you've effectively allowed a situation where over $1.5 trillion of intellectual property has been stolen. So think about it like this. The Gerald R. Ford, which is our most advanced supercarrier, took 10 years to build and research and design, okay? I have buddies who commissioned it. The Chinese, within 2 years, made a carbon copy of it and is now sitting in the South China Sea.
Wow.
Okay? We're at a point now where our education system is degraded to the point where we're 24th, 36th, and 38th in the world with respect to reading, with mathematics, and sciences. So how are we going to compete when India, for example, can launch a satellite to the South Pole of the moon, drop a rover, send back pictures to us for $80 million, and for $80 million, we can't even get a plan to get into low Earth orbit. We need to bring back American dynamism. We need to bring back excellence. We need to raise... Look, what I believe in is this. We are the single most powerful country in the world. You know what makes us powerful? You, me,
right,
everybody else
Thank
here.
You, Burt.
It's my neighbors. It's the people.
Burt makes us powerful.
We make our because I see the goodness in you. I see the goodness in you because I first saw the goodness in me, and I see the goodness in our country. When I went to the National Archives and I saw those 5 faded pieces of parchment sitting out there, I got emotional, man. First time I saw it was earlier this year. I actually went and I sat and I just started crying.
You talking about the Constitution?
Yeah,
And the Declaration.
and the Declaration.
Okay.
And I started. I suddenly realized it's like in the Book of Matthew, like when
the greatest inheritance any man could receive.
That's right. And where 2 or 3 or more gathered, it says God is there. So that's the way I feel about America. Because whether we're here, whether we're on a rocket headed to the moon, that's a piece of America, man. And we have to carry on these ideals. And look, I won Jeopardy. I appeared on the last episode of Jeopardy with Alex Trebek. Yeah.
On the very last one.
But the very last one that was televised while he was alive, it actually appeared during the election, 2020 election.
What was your favorite question or answer?
The one that I won on. The final Jeopardy.
Which was?
So it was this British general called these Spanish partisans this word. And it was, the category was foreign words, which are now English words.
Wow, brilliant.
So the question, the answer, the way I didn't know it, but I figured it out because I was like Spain, partisan, war. The Spanish word for war is guerra. So I was like, guerra, guerrillas, guerrillas. And that was the answer. So, also yo hablo español. Es necesario que nosotros creamos esperanza por todos. And we cannot underestimate the fact that part of the reason why the Democratic Party is so successful at their messaging. I thought about it. I've had many conversations. When an immigrant comes here, and understand this, I'm an immigrant. When an immigrant comes here, and you see you're learning English, we come from countries where the political parties say what they stand for. It's a Marxist party, it's the nationalist party, it's the party of the democracy. You come here, you see the Democratic Party, you just assume the Democratic Party has figured out one thing. Do you know that as a green card holder, you can participate in contributing to a campaign? The Democratic Party knows this, and they utilize it, whereas the Republican Party does not. So they aggressively go after green card holders, and they try. And it's like a value bet. Once you bet on something once, you're going to bet on it again,
Sure.
Hopefully it gets back. We have to change that mindset, and we have to start coming together. My campaign, look, if you all want to learn a bit more about me, go on my Twitter. It's at Burt for Congress. That's BurtForCongres. My campaign website is, my wife designed this logo. Everything is made here in the United States.
Nice.
And so if you all just want to scan that QR code, elections cost money. I am shamelessly unafraid to ask for money. The max donation you can give is $3,300 per person, $6,600 for the primary and the general. And here's the deal. I'm looking for 100 warriors who believe in America, who believe in changing the system, who believe in me and us to help make a difference. So please,
Noel,
how many
the beautiful Noel. Oh yes, go ahead, Roger.
How many languages do you speak?
Well, obviously I speak English, and I speak a few different I speak Southern English. I speak New York. No, I speak English, but I also speak Spanish.
You speak Spanglish?
I speak Spanglish. I speak Hindi, which is an Indian language. I speak Urdu. I'm learning Russian. Ya говорит по-русски. I taught myself Cyrillic, and I wanted to learn Russian. I'm learning some Mandarin.
What do you call somebody that speaks 2 languages?
Bilingual.
What do you call somebody that speaks 3 languages?
Trilingual.
What do you call somebody that speaks 1 language? American.
Unilingual.
American.
I think that America is defined. I remember what it was like flying on a plane and seeing America for the first time, seeing white people for the first time.
Wow. How old were you?
I was I was almost 8 years old. And you know, where I grew up, everybody looked like me. And I got on this plane in this Pan Am jet. And I saw white people for the first time. I saw Asian, black people, all that.
Clipper of the Sea.
Hey, man. Clipper of the Sea. I know. I remember that. Yeah. Yeah. I don't know if it was the Clipper, but it could have been now that I think about it. But I remember we were landing in New York, and I asked my grandfather, how do I tell who's an American? And he said, the Japanese are hardworking, the Germans are punctual, but an American, you can trust them with a handshake.
Wow.
Think about that. That was the ethos of what we were 8,000 miles away. When people ask me, what makes America great? I say, open your eyes and look in the mirror. That's it. So God bless all of you. God bless us. I just ask that we start being kinder towards each other. And we start by being kinder to ourselves. Realize we're a combination of our good and our bad.
Roger.
You kind of referred to this a little bit earlier, and I asked you another question short, cutting you off there. But, you know, it was awesome that Army beat Navy, wasn't it, a couple weeks ago?
You know, I'll say this. I think that is the oldest. Do you know that's one of the oldest football games in the country, and it's one of the few times in this crazy landscape where we can get together and just leave politics out of sports. Isn't that nice? Just for a little bit. No messaging, no kneeling, no performative nonsense, and just watching 2 football teams go at it. And yes, am I a little salty?
Or cricket.
Am I a little salty?
Because you were Navy, you said.
Am I a little salty?
What'd you do in the Navy?
I was a Navy nuke. So I joined. I was a nuclear reactor operator.
So you went to Goose Creek?
I did. Yes. Are you a Navy nuke?
He would have liked to have been.
My daughter's
Wow.
my daughter's boyfriend is on the Gerald Ford right now over there. I'm not sure where they were, but they were supposed to be home, I think, in November, and they're still over there because they got delayed because of all this crap. So we don't even know if he's going to be home for Christmas. But yeah,
Joe Biden and this administration arguably has the worst foreign policy of any president. What we have seen with the way that Blinken, it's part of the reason why I want to get into also government is that we always talk about impeaching presidencies, but we never do anything to remove those in power. What is Victoria Nuland doing still calling the shots? Why is Blinken? If I had those key performance indicators at work, I would have been S-canned a long time ago. Okay.
Back to the Army. There's that saying, the Army-Navy game, that's saying that everybody on the field fighting for their team is the only people that are willing to die for everybody else or something like that. You ever heard that saying? That everybody on the field was willing to die for everybody else.
Wow. I think that's a very beautiful sentiment, but
I'm not saying it correctly, but it's a sentiment.
There's a line actually in a Rudyard Kipling poem that I really like, and I've changed the last word, but the last 2 verses go like this. If you can take all of your winnings and risk it in one turn of pitch and toss and lose and start again at your beginnings, but never breathe a word about your loss, if you can force your heart and nerve and sinew to serve your turn long after they're gone, and so hold on when there's nothing left in you except the will which says to you, hold on. If you can talk with crowds and keep your virtue, or walk with kings nor lose the common touch, if neither loving friends nor foes can hurt you, if all men count with you, but none too much, if you can fill the unforgiving minute with 60 seconds worth of distance run, then the earth is yours, and all that's in it, which is more, you'll be an American.
Burt, you entered the U.S. legally, it sounds like,
awesome.
I presume. And right now you're in Texas that has, well, you're a border state. And I've got a flyer here I'm going to show the camera. I want you to look at that. Take a moment and look at that flyer.
Yes.
And the camera can now get that flyer. And I want to get your thoughts on what's happening on the border. Well, what is happening on the border, and outside of building a wall, what are some of the other things that need to happen in order to secure the country that you have flourished in?
Well, it's actually pinned on my Twitter. That's my ad is actually about the border. And in the last couple days, it's gotten over 230,000 views on Twitter.
Nice.
And I've driven the entire length of the border from San Diego to tip of Texas. I've driven the northern part up through the Dakotas, and then I turned around because I got bored. But I've been to places where you could literally cross. There's no enforcement. I've been to towns that have been ravaged by the scourge of drugs and by cartels. Police forces are overwhelmed. So when you ask, what is there to be done? I have a couple ideas. Number one, I want a 6-month moratorium on all immigration. And this is me saying that as an immigrant. I'll give you a couple reasons why. Number one, do you know how long the wait time is for Indians who have come here legally to go from H-1B or HB visas to green card? Can you?
4 years. I was going to say 4 years.
150 to 200 at times. Yes.
Days or
years? Yeah. Now, tell me that isn't criminal.
How do you even calculate that length of time?
That's right. So they process 7,000 a month, but they let in 50,000 a month. And the backlog is over 1.5 million long.
That's a great point.
That's egregious.
That's a great point, though, of why we should shut things down. Because
yes.
if we can't process,
moratorium.
And that's what I want. I'm tired of people suffering. I'm tired of the fact that I don't care who did it anymore. Okay, but I'll tell you why it's happening more in a second. But I'm tired of the suffering that is being caused by terrible border policies. That's it. And fentanyl has literally killed somebody in every single town. I door knocked on 700 doors to get on the ballot. I wanted to collect signatures. So on the last, my feet are hurting. You still see the mud because on my shoes. I literally came here on a plane yesterday after.
Wow, after knocking doors.
After knocking doors. I collected well over 500 signatures, and I still paid the $3,125 because I didn't want there to be any shenanigans. But why I did it was because I wanted the support of people in my district. The only endorsement I need are from the people, quite frankly. I learned this. When I'm meeting a dad in a town of 1,600 who is holding back his tears because his son, who's 18 years old, is about to get 10 years in prison because he was found with 12 fentanyl pills because he's now addicted. And now they're getting him for distribution. You know what I mean? When I'm meeting people whose kids are addicted or have overdosed, when I meet a school resource officer who literally started crying on my shoulder because a middle schooler died, and 9 people, she has saved 9 kids in high school this year.
Middle school is how old?
Middle school, I think 10, 11, 12, like, you know what I mean? Like 12 is high school, 12, 13, you know? Like, it's getting to a point where every single town, Ponder, Sanger, Munster, Decatur, Rome, like Louisville, Gainesville, every single town in my district has somebody who's either died or is deeply affected by it, and I'm pissed. So my idea is cartels, we have to take them down. We have to declare them just to be what they are, terrorist organizations. We have to make sure that we amplify and supply police forces with the requisite tools, whether it's cash dogs so we can find the homes where they're hiding the millions of dollars in cash, or we're figuring out aggressive policing when it comes to taking down organized. Well, I'll just be real blunt. Why did the federal government have a better job at controlling hydroxychloroquine and ivermectin than they did at fentanyl? Okay?
Well said, well said.
You know, like, I'm tired of people suffering and dying. The other thing I want to do is, look, let's build a wall, but also, along with that wall, let's make it a high-tech wall. Okay? We have to modernize. So let's have all kinds of sensors, not only embedded, but surrounding it. We can have situations where also we can have call stations, because guess what? People might legitimately be fleeing from the cartels, right? I remember I met some people who were in Ohio, and I helped to break this ring up. They were using 12-year-old boys to build A-frames. And what this worthless human being was doing was he was using these boys, getting paid $14.50 an hour. He was paying the boys 50 cents an hour, keeping them 10 deep in a room and 3 rooms. So 30 boys.
Texas?
Ohio. And now that was because a friend of mine called me and was terrified because he's like, hey, I'm scared of the cartels. I don't know what to do. I'm like, okay, let's handle it. And we handle it. But the reality is that's one instance that I was directly involved in.
Have you been to the border?
I've driven the entire.
He's driven the whole length.
I'll show you. I'll show
California
you photos.
to Texas,
Here, I'll show you some photos.
and
from the
some in
border.
North Dakota. He got bored. He got bored in the northern border.
I got bored.
Yep.
It's just like, but I think the other thing that we also need to seriously do is make remain in Mexico a law, or remain. You know, I'm tired
in the
of
first country you pass.
Yes, I'm tired of a situation where Congress isn't doing its job. What do I mean by that? We are at a point where the executive branch is ruling by executive order, and the judiciary is deciding the constitutionality of said executive order. And Congress is just there to inflame tensions and be a fundraising vehicle for presidential campaigns.
Well, let me say this,
Yes, and I use this opportunity. I use this opportunity to speak on this.
One more thing before I finish. Day one, I plan on issuing a bill to repeal the Patriot Act. I'm tired of moms being treated as domestic terrorists, and I'm tired of secret courts.
Newborn moms.
That's right. And the second thing is, everyone please look up the Declaration of North America. It's something I've been tweeting about. No other candidate, no elected member of Congress seems to even care. The Declaration of North America was signed at the beginning of this year by Biden, by Obrador, and by Trudeau. And it reaffirms the Los Angeles Declaration that was signed last year in June. And it says that migrants are to be treated humanely, given free passage across the three borders, not be stopped between the United States, Mexico, and Canada. They'll be treated with dignity. They'll be given housing. They'll be given medical care. They will be allowed to work and travel freely across the border.
And does that start in Mexico?
Because they have been displaced because of climate change, and therefore are asylees per
beautiful.
UN Agenda 2030.
Brilliant.
So look this up, man. Look this up. Test my gangster on this, because I am a ticked off citizen of the United States. Look, it took me a very long time. I'm a blue collar worker. I have a high school diploma. I don't have a college degree. So when I say I want to raise minimum, I'm proof positive of that.
You're Navy too.
I'm Navy. You know, my wife is the smart one with the MBA.
It's a graduate degree.
My wife is the smart one. She has the MBA, but I work in construction, and finally, I make good money. Finally, I now have a job I love. I'm not doing this for money. I'm not doing this for fame. Believe me, I make enough to be comfortable now, and God has blessed me more than anybody could imagine. Fame, I've had more of it than most people understand. I'm doing this because I see our rights being absolutely destroyed, and it's time we started taking power back. And we started legislating from a standpoint of, we have to get the states the power that they need in order to govern and make their own laws.
Go ahead.
So what I was saying a second ago is the fact that you were talking about the border and the humanitarian portion of that. 6 weeks ago, 2 months ago, I was down at Eagle Pass. And having gone, I'm a retired warrant officer. Going down there, I was like, I'm going down, defending the country. I had my, my Kevlar on, kind of figuratively speaking. We're going to go kick some butt. These people are invading the country. But while I was down there, I really was taken back by this one dynamic of, from a human standpoint, when you're watching these families with 6-month-old babies cross the Rio Grande as you're watching the raging rivers of the river, logs going flying down the river, these people putting their families in danger. Why? Because the border is open, even though Joe Biden says it's closed, and because his policies are allowing these families to take advantage of it and putting their families in harm's way.
That is, I spent a week on a farm, and
climbing through the concertina wire, watching people slice their legs open as they're handing their 6-month-old babies through the concertina wire. Humanitarian, it was moving, emotional, and everything like that. But that also, don't get me wrong, are they being trafficked? Are they being, kidnapped or something like that? But also on the same token, there was 5 guys from Venezuela. Hey, where are you from? Venezuela, with the fist like this. Military-age guys coming here from Venezuela. It was insane. It was incredible, emotional, moving, and everything else.
Burt, have you seen that type of activity down there when you've been on the border?
So what I realized is this: there are women and children who are coming here, and this was kind of my ethos behind it. Like, why are we creating a situation where 3 million people plus think it's okay to cross the southern border illegally, cross the Sonoran Desert, cross the Rio Grande, deal with coyotes, deal with traffickers, deal with drug cartels, deal with this, deal with that? Now, somebody put it into perspective, actual Border Patrol agent, put this into some pretty interesting perspective. He said, okay, if it's relatively cheaper, if you will, to get a fake passport, get fake papers, and fly into the United States, right? Whereas, why would somebody pay $5,000 to a coyote, et cetera, if they can have the $5,000 to do the same thing? Like, you go to Panama, you go to West Africa, you go to Europe, you're going to figure out a way to get here. There's plenty of nefarious people in this world, okay? The other side is, when I went to the ICE detention, I spoke to people who worked. I shouldn't say I went inside the ICE detention centers. That's a lie. Anybody who says that,
it's inaccurate. Or,
yeah. But I spoke to immediately outside the ICE detention centers where all the ICE detention center people hung out. I'm like, hey guys, let's hang out. And this is what I asked them. I said, who predominantly is in there? Well, now the cycle seems to be Chinese, North African, and Pakistani. So I was thinking to myself, if they're all men, I'm a guy, you're a guy, you're a guy.
Yeah.
No matter what happens, it's safe to say the three of us will never become refugees, no matter what happens, okay? And let me explain why. We can work, we can get food, we can figure out what to do, we can defend ourselves up to a point, you know what I mean? I've been to places in this world that are so poor that it makes your heart ache for the people.
I've been to 70 countries, yes.
You understand then what I'm saying. And yet, none of those people are clamoring to get on a boat to get out of here. And if they are, the only way they're going to do that is that they're going to send their children, their wives and children. When you're seeing throngs of people that are coming in, and they're all men. I just saw a recent interview which showed this guy who I think he was from Tunisia or Morocco, I don't remember. I think it was Morocco, actually. He was 22 years old.
Was he armed?
He was 22 years old. He's got these.
Okay.
22 years old. He's not fleeing anything in Morocco. And when they asked him, they said, what did you do in Morocco? Oh, I was a gamer. So what about your parents? Oh, they're fine. And then they're like, well, aren't you, what do you love? Oh, I love America. I'm going to follow all the rules. Okay. But you broke the rule coming in. He's like, I don't really care. So you don't care about the fact that the $7,000 that you spent to break the rules and get it? No. So what do you plan on doing when you come here? I'm going to be an Uber driver in New York and continue gaming. Maybe I'll start a Twitch channel. That to me has no business being a refugee. And I'll tell you why. That's somebody coming here for a better life. Think about it that way, right?
Okay.
Just go with me on
Give
this.
the benefit of the doubt.
Give the benefit of that. Somebody's coming here to make a little more money and live for a better life. Okay. If you're making $15 a day on a farm in a different country, and you come here and you're making $15 an hour, that's called immigration, right? A top engineer in India makes $20,000 a year, respectively. Right. Okay, you come here, you make $200,000 a year. That's called immigration. That's not asylum. You know what asylum is? If you're a Hutu and a Tutsi, and you're in a bloody civil war where an ethnic cleansing is happening, okay, you're coming here. That's asylum, and that should be granted sparingly to people who are under duress. You are being targeted by the Khmer Rouge, and you are being destroyed, okay? And you're coming here. That's asylum. You are a translator for the United States against the Taliban, and you're trying to come here. But guess what? Joe Biden didn't do that. The State Department did not do that to those people. And instead, what do we have here? We have a group of people here who are the first ones to wave a flag of a different country in protest of the United States. And I'm just sick of the nonsense. So I want us to get back to a reset. And I'll tell you, some of the most patriotic people in our country are immigrants who have come here legally. Okay? You know why?
My great-grandparents.
Me. My wife. My family.
Through Ellis Island.
You know why? You know why we're patriotic? Because we have understood the greatness of America, that we have a chance. I was just speaking to a young lady named Tomoko, right?
Yeah,
she was telling me, Tomoko, she was telling me about how she loves this country because in Japan, it's something as simple as taking onion or requesting the chef to take onion out of a dish is completely unacceptable.
Wow.
Right? And it's like, to most people, they wouldn't think about that, right?
Yeah.
And she's like, it's something that little, but you don't understand the freedom I feel. That was my first taste of freedom, is that I could do that, because individuality here is respected. Look, we can talk all day, but I'm tired of politicians. If you haven't been to the border and you haven't set foot there and you haven't spent time in towns and you haven't seen the suffering like you have, like the suffering I've seen.
Tomorrow we're going.
I'm telling you right now, I'm sick of the ghouls. I'm sick of the weirdos. I have a pretty strong border policy. I have a pretty strong policy to get us back on the right track. And I want to do it within 6 years.
So talking about Tomoko and the onion thing, I had an opportunity to go to Hungary in 1989 before the wall fell down. When I landed in Budapest and I got in a taxi, I'll never forget this question. And this is before I started traveling extensively with the military. The guy goes, I would like to know what a Big Mac tastes like. You know, I'm like, wow.
With or without onion? Yeah.
You know what I would like to taste? I'd like to taste pot roast from a mom and pop shop. I would like to go to a pharmacy that's owned by a family in the town. I would like to get windshield wipers that are made by the local factory. I'd like to get clothing that is made here in the United States.
I would like to have I would like to have my gas pumped.
That's right.
Like when I was
go to Oregon.
Go to Oregon. But
oh, really?
Yeah. But the other side too is I'd like to have a military that is agnostic of diversity, equity, inclusion, where people like Mark Milley aren't getting up there and saying, hey, we'll warn our counterpart in China of a first strike if it comes down to that. Where a military which doesn't focus on white rage as being the most important thing, but instead realizes the threat of swarm technology. We just saw it with the USS Carney, where you have 14 drones, if it costs them $50,000 to attack, and we're spending $3 million to defend, we're going to go bankrupt. I want to live in a society where the average high school graduate knows what the integral of x squared dx is because their counterpart in China, and Chennai sure does. I want to grow up in a country where...
even worse than that. Yeah. Not the math. We have kids that don't know whether they're a girl or boy.
And worse than that.
Should I use the boys' room or the girls' room?
35% of children right now cannot read. And do you know that age 15 to 22, 54% of all sexually transmitted diseases are found in kids 15 to 24 now, emerging. In the Black community, 5% of all cases that are diagnosed with HIV are coming in kids now. 85% are coming down with chlamydia. We're at a point now where we have a public health crisis, we have an educational crisis, we have a socioeconomic crisis. And I'm just saying, look, let's put our differences aside and let's start working together. Whether Republican, whether Democrat, whatever, 80% of the issues should be focused towards building America. And look, I support President Trump, and I'll tell you exactly why. I'm an early supporter of President Trump, and I support President Trump for one reason: single-handedly kept us out of war since 1978. And his foreign policy was on point. Whether you can make it to, it was somebody else's, okay, great, fantastic. He was still the executive, and his job is...
He had mean tweets.
Man, the funniest tweets of all time. But I also believe that we saw during that time the power of big tech. We saw the power. Just because Elon bought Twitter doesn't mean we still don't need Section 230 reforms.
All right, well said.
And so we have to get off this notion that just because something happens, we're going to let other problems wither on the vine, because there's always going to be an issue. And I'm tired of politicians being flashlights that are saying, hey, vote for me because I can point out the problem better than you. What's the solution? That's it. Hey,
is the... Go ahead.
Yeah. So light, just bringing back light, because back to the Navy thing. I mentioned that my daughter's boyfriend is on the Gerald Ford.
Yes.
So when I was tweeting back asking how are you doing? Don't ask him too many questions. How you doing? He said fine.
Yes, sir.
And I said, do you know when do you have any idea what's going on? He says, well, we're getting replaced by the Ike, the mighty, the big Ike, the big Ike. And I thought, like, when he called it the Eisenhower, the USS Eisenhower is called the Ike, and I like the next day I texted him back. I said, hey, have you guys come up with a name for the Gerald Ford yet? And he's like, no, we haven't come up with it. I called the Gerald Ford Library, and I called them up, the presidential library. I said, did Gerald Ford have a nickname? And the lady said, yes. His mother used to call him Junie, which was a play on the name of Junior, Gerald Ford Jr. And it was a name that stuck with him when he played football at Michigan and stuff like that. Wow. And so I told my daughter, I said, start calling it the Junie.
I think that's a good idea.
Because it's such a powerful name, because it's based in football and American values.
Also, my birthday's in June, so I love that.
Yeah, what? Okay, yeah. But I thought that was a neat thing.
Let me ask a question, because you said something, Burt, that's quite captivating here. The Declaration of North America, and I inserted there, does that start in Mexico? Is the invasion at the border, Burt, is this being orchestrated from a United Nations level?
Yes.
Have they infiltrated D.C. to that level that the entire regime, as I refer to it...
How about I pull it up for you?
Go ahead.
Because you'll actually see that the Declaration of North America is based off the Los Angeles Agreement, and the Los Angeles Agreement directly references UN Agenda 2030. So let me just pull it up, just so you can test my
absolutely.
Look, question everything. Just because somebody is saying something doesn't objectively make it true.
What Reagan said?
Trust but verify.
Trust but verify.
Okay, trust but verify.
Los Angeles Declaration on Migration and Protection. Okay.
Is that whitehouse.gov?
So yeah, whitehouse.gov. So the Declaration of North America references this document, and we, the heads of the state of governments of Argentina, basically all of South America and all the way up, reiterate our will to strengthen national, regional, and hemispheric efforts to create conditions for safe, orderly, humane, and regular migration, to strengthen frameworks for international protection and cooperation. We embrace the need to promote blah, blah, blah. We're committed to protecting the safety and dignity of all migrants, refugees, asylum seekers, stateless persons, regardless of their migratory status, and respecting their human rights and fundamental. Sounds good, right? We acknowledge that addressing irregular international migration requires a social approach. And then, hold on, let me come down to UN Agenda 2030. So basically what this says, the Los Angeles Agreement lays out, here's the convene multilateral development banks and international financial institutions and traditional and non-traditional donors to review financial support instruments. Improve regional cooperation mechanism for law enforcement cooperations, protection-sensitive border management, strengthen and expand temporary labor migration pathways as feasible that benefit countries across the region, including those new programs promoting connections between employers and migrant workers. So if you've noticed, there are now instances that I'm hearing where they're going to let illegal immigrants be police officers. Think about that.
Awesome.
Right? Expand regular pathways.
How are they going to pay them if they defunded the police?
So right here, it talks about this. Declaration builds upon existing efforts, blah, blah, blah. Set forth in Global Compact on Refugees and Migration, anchored in the 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development. There you go. The proof is in the pudding. It's UN Agenda 2030.
All right, now,
so you know why I know this stuff? Because I read.
Sure.
Because I realize I don't have all the answers. So when I get curious about something, I don't trust somebody else's interpretation. I want to read it. But it was actually something that I learned from watching CEOs of very large companies, from Jeff Bezos to Elon Musk. I was like, what do these guys do that makes them think differently? And one of the things that he said is, I never trust that somebody else is going to read a memo. I carve out 30 minutes in the morning before any meeting begins. So all of us read the memo. We start looking at questions. We ask questions. And then we start discussing the memo. And I thought, you know what? That's a really good way of approaching things. If somebody's talking about migration, if somebody's talking about the State Department, how about we go to the source documents?
Now, here's Simon, as we wind down and let you let you move along. This is actually Roger's favorite time of the interviews. What is your take, Burt, on the Federal Reserve? Do you have any opinions on that?
I have a few opinions on it. I think what Ron Paul was talking about back in the day is starkly now being seen as a reality, because I'll put it to you like this. When Moody's and Fitch downgraded our credit rating from AAA to AA, right? Basically, the way that affects us is that our interest rate is going to go up on the money that we've borrowed. So interest rate was sitting at 3.05%, and now it's going to go up to almost 5%, which means the interest on the debt alone at $34 trillion is $1.7 trillion. To put into, I know these numbers like millions, billions, and trillions get thrown around, but I don't think people understand what the size, the enormity of them. We hear
the gravity.
So, how many days do you think a million seconds is? Just throw out a number.
Let's go with 10 years.
11 days, right?
Oh wow!
Yeah.
Okay, I had no clue.
How long do you think a billion seconds is? Very quick. 31 years. That's the difference between a million and a billion. How long do you think the difference between a billion and a trillion is? 31,700 plus years. That is the difference between a million, a billion, and a trillion. So think about 1.7
national
trillion.
Suicide.
That's right, which is more than the entire GDP of Saudi Arabia, plus the budget of the USDA, the FDA, NASA, Homeland Security, and, by the way, our military budget combined, which is insane. So when Janet Yellen and the central banks, the game I think they're playing by artificially increasing or decreasing interest rates in order for us to kind of play the derivative market and the long-term lending market, great, awesome, fantastic, if it worked. That stuff works when it's 3 trillion to 5 trillion, when it's something manageable and it's a percentage of your GDP, right? But when it is now almost 1.6 times the entire GDP, which we're at a situation now where it's a soap bubble. And so when it comes to the central banks, my question is this. Okay, when you have Gary Gensler arguably coordinating with Sam Bankman-Fried at FTX to keep Bitcoin down at 20K, and Sam Bankman-Fried is effectively, moving Bitcoin from whales and speculative investors in order to keep central currency, digital currency down. And now the SEC is looking at cryptocurrency as being effectively fiat and a security. Now you're hearing talks of a central bank digital currency.
Right.
I say not only no, but a resounding no. And we have to decouple from people whose interests are not necessarily the United States' interests. The geopolitical economy is really complex, but what is the central bank doing ultimately if Saudi Arabia is now using the yuan as the reserve currency and is high-fiving Putin? What is the central bank doing if the United Arab Emirates decided to just get off the petrodollar that happened last week? What is the central bank doing if BRICS is now going around and actually replacing the International Monetary Fund, the World Bank, and all these other things that we have invested a lot of money into, and now they're using the BRICS funding avenues from the CCP? What is the central bank doing allowing effectively the lending that's happening from a federal perspective to California, if California is doing business with the CCP at the level that it's doing? So I want people to start working for America, and I'll argue with people all day about this. I want smart people who are in government. That goes without saying. I want the economists from Wharton. I want the economists from Harvard Business School. I just don't want them tainted with diversity, equity, inclusion. I want the brightest minds in there who are ruthless, like I am, when it comes to being dogmatic about protecting America. I want people who make me look like an idiot getting into those positions if they're unelected.
Well said. Well said. Roger, go ahead.
Say your website and donation one more time.
Hi, everyone. My name, once again, is Burt Thakur, and my website is www.burtthakur4congress.com. You can find it here. The QR code will get you up to the link tree, which has access to my Twitter and everything else. And that is my cell phone number, actually. Part of the reason why I'm doing this, I got really ticked off that nobody could get a hold of anyone running for office, and everyone from city council all the way up to senator, you got a voicemail, and I got really ticked off. So feel free to contact me, and if you have ideas, educate me. I would love to, if I get into office, and when I get into office.
When you get in office.
I won't just represent the people in my district. I'll represent everyone in the United States. AOC has as much of an influence on you, and so does, McCarthy up until recently, but still, while he's in power, they all have influence on you, whether you believe it or not. So we should have access to all of them.
Burt, thank you very much.
Hey, thank you so much, man. I'm really grateful.